thanks for coming in today. It's really great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
So you're from a small country town in regional Queensland. The town is Stanthorpe. Your family own some cottages out there, some tourist accommodation, and you're very involved in the local tourism community. Can you tell us a little bit about what life in Stanthorpe's like at the moment, and particularly the industry out there at this time?
Yeah, of course. So as of this moment, actually most of the tourism businesses are getting really busy. So as soon as some of the restrictions were lifted, it meant that bookings filled up. So most accommodation providers, their calendars are really full, which is really great, and it's a sigh of relief for operators who were feeling really stressed by all of the effects of COVID. And in our region in particular, previously they had been through bushfires and drought. So tourism had been really turbulent over the last few months. So at the moment, there's kind of a sigh of relief for all operators as they're really excited to welcome people back into the town and be able to share their community with tourists again.
So winter's always a really great time for tourism in Stanthorpe and around the Granite Belt and in regional Queensland around that area. Lots of wineries, lots of bushwalking, lots of things to do. So it's going to be a good winter for you guys.
In Stanthorpe, it's freezing in winter. And so I think it's quite a novelty for people to go out and be able to put on the wood fires and cozy up at night. Winter is nearly booked out though. And so like I was mentioning to you earlier, spring is coming up, and to be honest, spring is my favourite time for the region. Everything is in bloom. It's sunny, but it's still cool enough that you can still have the wood fires. I think that if you miss out on winter, spring is also a really great time to experience the region.
You've had kind of the triple whammy in the sense that you've had droughts and then the bushfires and then now COVID-19. How are people responding to that out there in Stanthorpe, particularly in a regional tourism destination?
It already has its own challenges because it's separated from capital cities, so they really need to rely on their community to be able to pull together and offer a really great value proposition to tourists. So that is a challenge in itself. But then the first most recent disaster they had was the drought. The drought went on for months and months and months. So tourism operators were asked to put water saving guidelines in their cottages or their accommodation providers or their place of business, which actually kind of deterred a few tourists because they also didn't want to use such a precious resource that the community was relying on. Not long after the drought, they had a really bad bushfire, some of the worst bushfires the region has seen, and then they had COVID. So I think that businesses really just felt a bit defeated. COVID was so widespread that at least the region felt that they weren't alone. They could kind of resonate with tourism around Australia and around the world because they were all going through the same things.
So Rachel, there's lots of information out there. How do you work out what's important and what could actually help with your recovery strategy?
I think that being able to identify who your business is, where your business sits within the region, within the nation, will help you kind of disseminate what's important to you and what's not. So really knowing everything that you need to know about your business will help you to be able to look at all of the information that's out there and be able to select, this is appropriate to me, my business structure, my customers, and this isn't applicable. That's too big for my business, that's too small for my business, that's just not applicable to my business.
So Rachel, there's still a lot of uncertainty out there. What sorts of information do you think businesses need to know now to start to build their recovery strategy?
We can't rely on business always being as usual as we head into the future. So I think leaning into research, leaning into some predictions about what the future might look like, reading into what the future normal might be so that we can have business plans that are flexible and can ebb and flow a little bit with whatever the world kind of presents itself.
Because it looks like this is going to be around for a little while in terms of trying to adjust our business plans and particularly our customer experience for viruses such as COVID-19 and others that might come in the future. So we really need to make some long-term plans as to how we're going to integrate these types of measures such as social distancing and that sort of thing into our new way of operating.
Yes, certainly. So I think some businesses were really lucky, particularly our business, Briar Cottages, has contactless check-in. So that was kind of already done for us. We have a lot of online website bookings and everything, which is really great. But certainly we need to make sure that the consumer still feels like they're getting the value from their experience with us in the region, that they still feel connected, that they still feel like they've had a wonderful experience. And so navigating that as we move forward, moving through staged return to business and things like that, it will be challenging, and I think we really need to lean into consumer feedback as we follow those guidelines on how we can facilitate a really memorable experience for them while we continue to adjust to something that's at the moment a bit unfamiliar to us.
So technology is obviously going to play quite a big role in how we respond to this health crisis, but also thinking about what visitors want in terms of having quite a personal experience, an authentic experience, and those interactions with people are also really important, particularly in regional tourism destinations where it's the local culture, the people that really make the place. So how do you think we're going to manage that moving forward?
So I think that's definitely one of the challenges and one of the things that our region is looking to adapt to as we speak. So a lot of accommodation providers can offer a contactless check-in. So for an accommodation provider to offer that personality, I think that it's okay to lean on some technologies in your messages, in your emails, being personable, sharing a story of your business online so that they get a sense of who you are, who the business is, what makes your business unique. You can have that online, and that's okay to rely on that. For other businesses though, for example, wineries, where people love to meet the winemaker and they love to chat about the wines, it really is just about making sure your business is following the guidelines and able to offer that experience to consumers in a way that keeps both the business and the consumer safe so that everyone has an enjoyable experience and the region is still able to be shared with consumers.
I wanted to ask you about other crises and disasters. How is the COVID-19 pandemic different to what you've experienced previously?
Every disaster is as awful as the next. They're all challenging. They all present unique challenges. For the drought and bushfire that our region experienced, the challenge there was that we were still open for business. So still trying to circulate and encourage that tourist dollar in our region, knowing that our tourist offering was a little different. We were trying to adapt our tourist offering while remaining open. Whereas COVID, there was no option. It was completely stopped, which was scary in and of itself. But I think taking away the power from businesses, while obviously that's very scary, it did allow businesses to feel that they were doing everything they could because there wasn't an option. And like I touched on previously, the first two incidents were really localised. They were really happening just within our region. So even though we could say our region really needs tourists, we really need to see you visit our region, that only was heard so far. Whereas with COVID, there's been such a massive response. It's so well covered globally. So when we had a call for tourists to come and support our region when we reopened, that was heard in a really massive way. And we've seen that be responded to, and tourists are flocking to the region to try and support us in these winter months, which is really, really amazing. So in a way, having that support on a global scale was really beneficial for the region.
As we open back up, we're going to see the domestic market open up first, which in some ways is really great for Stanthorpe because you have quite a strong domestic consumer base to your destination, but there's going to be a lot of competition. How do you compete in this really highly competitive marketplace?
So certainly, I think it will be extremely competitive. So the tourist dollar that maybe people would have spent overseas, that will be ready to be circulated domestically, which is super exciting for a region like ours, but it also is exciting for any regional destination around Australia. So definitely making sure that our value proposition is clear, that consumers know when they come to our region, this is what they can experience. So I think it's really important that businesses really work together to sell the region to tourists.
So there's competition with other destinations, but there's also competitive rivalry within the region itself. And often the way in which that's addressed is through discounting and which affects everyone's profitability. How are you dealing with that out at Stanthorpe? Are people thinking about discounting, or are they thinking about other strategies to drive demand for their experiences?
So I certainly think that some businesses are offering discounts, but I don't think it's coming from a place of competition. They might be offering discounts because they understand what it's like in this current market. And I can speak from our perspective. We like to offer discounts to families, for example, knowing that times can be tough. They've had to homeschool, so being able to offer them a getaway with a little discount, we're kind of doing it from a place of compassion for our consumer, not necessarily competition.
You mentioned a good point there around the battle for consumer spend. Holidays and tourism isn't just competing with itself, it's actually competing with other things such as renovating your house or buying a new home entertainment system and so forth. And it's going to be pretty tough over the next few years in terms of people having the money to spend on some of those discretionary items. What do you think about that in terms of how tourism can outcompete other consumer goods?
I think just asking yourself, if you were in that position and you've got a certain amount of money to spend and you can spend it on your home or you could go on a trip away, what would that trip away need to have in order to get you to go? So for me, I would be really looking for an experience. What's something that I could do with my partner that would create a really long-lasting memory, that would make us laugh, that would make us have fun? And so trying to articulate that to a consumer through videos or photos could be really beneficial during this time.
I think as well, a lot of people are sort of being stuck at home for quite a long period of time and the kids are being homeschooled and so that opportunity for families to get out and explore and have a bit of fun together rather than just be stuck at home, I think that's really important moving forward as well.
All of that change resulted in high stress levels for a lot of people. So that's a really great opportunity for people to go out and experience nature, to get out of the busy cities and get into regional destinations, to be able to just take a deep breath and relax a little bit away from the hustle and bustle of city life.
Having experienced a number of disasters out in your community, are there any tips you'd offer to small tourism enterprises moving forward?
Whatever crisis you're going through, maybe it is on a global scale, maybe it's local, or maybe it's just with your business, reaching out and talking to other businesses that may be able to share their insights or help you through some of the challenges that you're going through. The second thing was to really focus on our customers, focus on our consumers. How can we stay connected with them? How can we communicate with them? How can we make them feel like they're part of our business and that they're really important to us? So amping up our social media outreach, sharing photos and videos that they could connect with was really useful. And lastly, just rechecking your business ethics. So who are you as a business? What is important to you as a business? We all know that profit is important, but during crisis like this, we have to acknowledge that there are a number of other things that are really important. And so focusing on some of those things and articulating that that is our business is really important to do to establish that sense of identity.
So Rachel, thanks for coming in today. It sounds like you've got quite a positive future out there at Stanthorpe. Still some things to deal with, but looking really good, particularly over this next winter season for you guys.
Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. It's been a pleasure to chat about our region and what's been happening in the last few months. And we look forward to hosting everyone, not just in winter, but in spring and summer. We've got lots to offer and we're excited to have people come back to the region and experience it with us.